Uh, Okie dokie. So let's just get to it here. We're going to talk about quantitative methods and qualitative methods, and we'll start down the quant road here. So I like to think about both the quant and the qual as a cookbook. And in a cookbook, you have several pieces of that, right? So you have what are the ingredients, how do we mix things together, and how long do we cook things for? And we have enough information in that cookbook to actually create that recipe. And similarly, you have to have enough information in your methodology where someone who doesn't really know anything, like a novice chef, can go ahead and replicate your study. So you need to have that information in there. What you do not need in a recipe is, well, where exactly did the vanilla beans come from and how were they grown and how and things of this sort. You don't need literature review in there. You don't need justification in there. That should all be done before. Um, to me, the methodology is just the facts, ma'am. Just tell me how to create that study. So in quant methods, certainly some of the bones are you need to have research questions. Here are the guiding questions or study aims that's really kind of driving this research. You need participants, who they are, okay? Are they, what part of the country are they from, or the globe are they from? I do definitely come across different studies. I want to talk about, Haitian women giving childbirth at home. It's a very specialized population. And the results of that study may not generalize outside of Haitian women or be having births at home. So you want to kind of identify that inclusion and exclusion criteria. The instruments, typically these are survey instruments, but instruments, or we used to call them materials, and maybe that's a better word for it. Materials encompass several broad things. Certainly a consent form, it's not really an instrument, but it's a material. So consent form is something that you're going to have to produce. So and that people should have to endorse. Okay, so consent form, if it's inside of a survey instrument, okay, fine. But sometimes for Haitian women at home, maybe we don't have a computer there. Maybe we're endorsing that we can get data on them. The other part is hopefully a reliable and valid survey. It's important for several reasons. Most folks that are doing quantitative studies want to use the instruments. I want to assess emotional intelligence. I want to assess leadership. Okay. Okay. You're not creating instruments. Okay. That's a whole other study. And if that's your study, that's fine. But don't conflate like using an instrument and creating one. So if you're creating one, committee members can say, and IRB can say, hey, gosh, how do you know that that's reliable and valid? It opens up a whole can of worms that we really should not be going down. Okay. We should be going down the use of the instrument. Hey, here's the reliability and validity that the folks that have used this thing before have said, great, and we can use it. Okay. And get permission to use it. The other part of reliable, valid instruments are that we have in intellective statistics or any other kind of LLM, you can really help curate just a discussion draft, okay? And it's going to want to put your results in context, and it's going to be really helpful if there's literature out there in the world that can help support or refute what you've been doing, or say that you've consistently found something or not. All right, so use reliable, valid instruments. Procedure, oh, by the way, I mean, and sometimes if you're just getting basic, let's see, uh, empirically objective assessments, you don't need an instrument, right? I mean, if you're getting, blood pressure or pulse rate, you don't need an instrument for that. So, but for most of the things where we have a construct, okay, of some sort, and there's 1,000 of them, or tens of thousands of them, find an instrument that's out there. One other piece about instruments that I hear, people say, well, I cannot find an instrument. Okay. So now I'm talking to you doc students, not faculty, or to faculty, mentoring doc students. They said, I can't find an instrument. Okay. I don't think you have any right to be conducting a study. You're a doc student, okay, looking to complete your degree and move on to your career or further your career. And no one in the whole globe and of all time have ever created an instrument, but you have to create this instrument with all the concerns that come with it. So that's a red flag. So you do not want to be doing that. So I would say, if I was your mentor, that if you cannot find any instrument, find a topic, okay, where there is some literature in there, okay, and instruments in there, okay. We're not changing the world. We're putting a small little dent in the world. So just be cautious, and don't fool yourselves into thinking that I have to create something new. Okay, all right. It's got to be a little wrinkle, but it doesn't have to be. We're not shifting the axis of the earth here. The procedure is basically, now that I've talked about participants and who they are and how they were included or not, and I know what I'm giving them, I'm going to give them a request a consent form and assess them on these demographic variables and other survey instrument construct kind of questions. How am I presenting this to them? What are the steps? Well, I'm going to go to Facebook, or my faculty is going to help me, or I'm going to go to these groups and I'm going to invite folks. That invitation is also a material, right? If someone had to replicate your study, they have to also have an invite ad, okay? So I'm going to give them the invitation ad. I'm going to introduce a consent form, and I'm going to ask them to take the survey that's going to take them X amount of minutes to do, okay? Then I'm going to thank them, okay, or whatever. That's the procedure, okay? So again, there's a striking a right balance between the, getting that job done, walking them through those steps, but not intricate things. I mean, I'm logging on to this website to, whatever. I mean, you want to, not too much, not too little, okay? Enough for them to administer those materials to those participants. The data plan is where people get stuck, okay? Now I have the data, great, okay? How am I going to analyze that data to examine those research questions? That's where people get stuck. And basically, I'm going to spend a few minutes on that. And the short answer is, I'm going to look at the phraseology of the research questions. I'm going to look at the level of measurement of the variables, and those two pieces of information together help understand what statistical test to use. Okay. Sample size, and I should probably, sample size determination. The sample size is, there's two types of sample sizes in the world. One is based on the population. I want to figure out what American voters are going to be doing in the midterm elections, okay? And I have to assess 1,500 people or 3,000 people or whatever it is to represent all the parts of the country. That's not the sample size we're using here. Again, we're not shifting the world on its axes. We are doing a simple dissertation or a simple study. Doesn't have to be simple, but the sample size we're using is based on the data analysis plan. If I'm doing a correlation, I need 34 people. If I'm doing an ANOVA, I need this many, okay? So the sample size, called a power analysis, helps determine what the desired sample size is. Doesn't mean you're going to find significance, but it gives you an 80% chance of finding differences if they're there, or finding relationships if they're there. So the sample size is not determined up in the participant section. It's determined after the data analysis plan. That's where sample size comes in. The other thing I should probably add in this thing too, in addition to materials, is ethics. So there should probably be a little ethical consideration here. All right. I haven't really included it, but um, that should be in there. Okay, let's talk about data plans. So, as I say, it's research questions in statistical language. It's not highfalutin language. I'll show you there's kind of a few key terms that capture lots of things, but essentially it's talking about your constructs and how these things are related or different from each other. So some way of discussing those constructs that you're measuring. Okay. And then the levels of measurement, and we'll spend a moment there. Basically, you have three of them: nominal, ordinal, scale. You have to know what those are. Different tests require those. Okay. So you have to get that down. And let me just see okay, so let me start here with the levels of measurement. So nominal is just basically just the names. There's no order. They're just labels. Republican, Democrat, Independent, male, female, non-binary. There's no order of things, okay? There's just labels of things. And I have a red block and a blue block and a green block. They're just labels. And it's the coarsest form of measurement, but lots of things are measured in that way. And it's represented by that icon of that Venn diagram, okay? The next level of measurement is really ordinal levels of measurement. Here we have labels and orders. I have a small 8-ounce Coca-Cola. I have a regular 12-ounce Coca-Cola, and I have a 32-ounce big gulp. Melissa, you'll have to tell me if these things even exist anymore. Not that you know, but I'm curious. Okay, then we have this 32-ounce or 64-ounce big gulp Coca-Cola. Okay, so we have labels: small, regular, big gulp. Okay, we have these labels. We also have an order. Okay, but they're not equal. I'll say in the distance or the volume between these things are not equal. Small to regular is 8 ounces to 12 ounces for, okay. Regular to big gulp is 12 ounces to 64 ounces, okay. And lots of things are ordered variables, particularly like age ranges: 18 to 25, 25 to 35, 36 to 40, okay. Then 45 or greater, okay. It's a much larger range, okay. Horse races come in first, second, third horse is, glue bag over there and coming in 3 minutes later. So, so it has labels and it has an order, but not equal intervals. And it's identified by that bar icon. The third is scale level. It's called lots of things. It's called ratio. It's called interval. There's nuances there. It's called continuous. It's represented by a ruler, but it has all of these things. It has labels: 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch. It has an order: 1 before 2, 2 before 3, okay? And has equal spacing, be it in distance, okay, be it in volume or things of that sort, all right? And I think I say a quick note. I'll just say a quick note about ordinal and scale. People can get hung up, and there's still conversations going on about, is a Likert type item an ordinal or scale ratio, ordinal or scale level of measurement? And the short answer, so in other words, if I go from 5-point Likert scale: strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, is that ordinal? Or are those equal levels? Do I have as much distance in my field perception of agreement from strongly agree to agree as it is from agree to neutral? Kind of a question. So the answer is The rule. So when it comes to one specific item, which is Likert type, the rule of thumb is if it's 3 or 4 levels, keep it as ordinal. When the rule of thumb is for one item, when you have 5 or more, okay, levels, Likert type, strongly disagree to strongly agree, 5 levels, 7 levels, you could treat it as scale with no impact. Okay. The other piece of that Likert type item business is that once you start averaging or summing these things, we are now purely in scale land. So whether or not I have a 3-point item, or even better yet, I have a question, I have a 10-point question, 10 points, a knowledge questionnaire, and each item I get correct or incorrect. That's a nominal level, okay? Correct or incorrect. It's a nominal level. Once I start assigning correct gets 1 and incorrect gets 0, once I start adding these things together or averaging these things together, okay, I'm purely in scale land. So just heads up there. And then Melissa, maybe throw in the link there that talks about ordinal and scale. It's a conversation, but don't get hung up on it. Most folks are averaging these things together, okay? Or summing these things together. All right, let me go back for a second. Okay, research questions. So let's talk about that language. Most language, if you are, I wish I had my little, most analyses can be captured talking about relating variable A and B, differences on some variable by some other variable, or predicted or impact. Those relating, differences, prediction captures 25 tests, okay? So, and we'll talk about those. But that's the language I'm talking about. Again, it's not highfalutin language, but it's connecting variables in particular ways that evoke a type of analysis. So once you have that language, relating, differences, predicted, and we know the levels of measurement, then we can go on. So if I have a research question which says, does diagnosis, okay, present or absent, okay, and gender, male, female, okay, I have 2 nominal level variables. If I want to relate diagnosis and sex, okay, chi-square is our test, nominal and ordinal, okay. What's the likelihood of getting some disease? None, some, definitely, and so some ordinal level and some nominal male, female, still do chi-squares. Once you go ordinal, or ordinal scale, we're into Spearman and Pearson correlation. The Pearson requires that both of your variables are scale. Once you touch on an ordinal variable, we're in Spearman land, okay? Okay. When we do differences and all the t-tests and all the ANOVAs and the ANCOVAs, okay, all of these things is all looking at differences. Typically, differences in a mean, okay? Are there differences in emotional intelligence by sex? Okay. Are there differences in runtime? Okay, the 5-mile runtime by sex, okay, or some other variable, okay? So once we're looking at differences in some scale variable by some nominal variable, could be sex, could be age, old and young, could be, okay, age, runtime by age, under 18, 19 to 25, 26 and above, okay? We're in well, if the nominal and ordinal has 2 levels, we're in t-test land over here, typically independent sample t-test. If your variable, your independent variable has more than 3 levels, okay, like, emotional intelligence by sex or by gender, I should say, and it's male, female, non-binary, we're in an overland. So once you're independent variable, the by some variable comes into play, we're into an overland. Ordinal binominal, you're in Mann-Whitney and Crisco-Wallace. These are between subjects or between participants. So is there differences on, you know, age level, okay, by sex. We're in Mann-Whitney tests. The Wilcoxon and Friedman, those are within subjects. So I want to measure runtime pre to post, which doesn't meet the assumptions for some reason. There's assumptions to some of these tests. We're kind of in this paired or repeated measures part. Those are Wilcoxons and Friedmans, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. Okay, once we're in any kind of prediction, does this predict that? Does this impact that? Any of that language, okay, we are clearly in regression land. And the key thing is whether the outcome variable, the thing being predicted, okay, is what level of measurement that is. So if that predicted variable is nominal, but it's binary, male, female, Republican, Democrat, okay, we're in binary logistic regression. If that outcome variable has more than 3 levels, I want to predict red block, green block, blue block, purple block, we're in multinomial regression. If your outcome variable is ordinal, you're in ordinal regression. And if it's scale, which is the common thing, once you have a scale level outcome variable, or called a criterion level variable, multiple linear regression is the analysis. And I'll say the linear regression, common, and slightly less common, but common, is the binary logistic regression. These other ones are I rarely see them over, decades. Okay, so let's just stop there and ask for questions. What do you need another round on, if anything?
You can also raise your hand if you prefer, and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question.
Any questions related to quantitative methodology, whether talked about or not talked about? Okay.
We have a question or a hand raised.
Great. Okay, is it Kearney?
Yes. Wow. I'm impressed. Good job. Yes, this is
Okay.
Kearney. And
Well, then I'll stop right there. Well, I'll quit while I'm ahead then. But what's going
so
on?
in the sample size determination, you were talking about how you don't need to use a giant sample, you can use specific ones. And I think you said a term on how to find out, like there's already resources on how to determine what is a appropriate sample size.
So it's called a power analysis. And let's see what I can get here. Hang on. I think if I go to here, and I think if I just go here, and I think if I just go, if I go to the tool, our tool is the Intellectus Statistics tool. You can get a 7-day free trial, cancel thereafter, and it's under power analysis. And under power analysis, you can then select the test that you're doing, like an independent samples t-test. And then for different effect sizes, okay, there's different sample sizes. If you knew nothing, I would just go with a medium effect size. Effect size is how easy it is to detect differences. So without getting into it too much, just to know that if you had a default somewhere, it'd be medium. There's also practical implication, like, so if you've studied emotional intelligence, if you're looking at emotional intelligence by gender, and you're going to some novel part of the country or the globe or whatever, you can look at literature, okay, and see, if that effect size was small, medium, or large, and then say, well, I'm doing an independent sample t-test, and past literature said it's a small effect size. I need 788. So that's the theoretical way of getting at it. But there's also practicalities. Like there's no way in God's earth I'm getting 788 people. So practically, maybe we're in, medium and large effect sizes. And it's slightly counterintuitive, but the the math and the logic is if I can easily detect differences, I need a smaller sample to identify that. So hence large effects, small samples, small effects, large samples. And then you can do that for many of the tests, if not all the tests. Um, okay. But it gives you, without going into G-Power or SPSS's pass, it kind of lets you lock into a sample size.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, are there other questions or other uh okay. Let me try 2 for 2. Emeka.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Emeka.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. How did I do with your name?
Yes, you did it very well.
All right, fine. How do you say it?
Emeka.
Perfect. All right, Emeka. All right, what's your question?
Yeah, it's not really a question, but I just want to add to the last question, the
Please.
previous question, because the problem I've experienced I help some people in data analysis is they do all those things. They come to you when it comes to data analysis. And then you find that either the sample size they are using is not appropriate, or perhaps maybe the data they collected, the method they use is not appropriate to the methodology that will answer the question that they have in their research question, which means it goes back again. So, like we were saying, I think these things will have to be done when methodology is being decided upon or sample collection is being done so that the data analysis will be able to use the information already collected. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I think it's a great point. And unfortunately, I mean, look, for the faculty that are on doing your research, you know what to do. Unfortunately, for some doctors, some of that faculty, I meet them and they're like, I've collected data. Where is your data analysis plan and your methodology? Do not talk about any statistical tests or the wrong tests or tests, as you're saying, tests that are not really answering the question at hand. So I think, so yeah, that methodology, hence this webinar, is really trying to nail that down. So I think you're right on to say, and I agree, the most problems occur in that methodology and in that data plan in particular. And there's got to be a very clear line between those questions and that data collected and levels of measurement thereof, and the analysis to examine that. So yeah, I think yeah, I never felt like I was alone in it, and you just kind of reinforced the fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, where are you out of, Mecca?
Alabama A&M University.
In Miami. Okay, right on. We're at St. Pete up the street.
Mm.
So well, terrific. All righty, great. Thank you for.
And then
thank
we
you.
had one more question in the chat.
Okay. What would be the best level of measurement to use for a survey style yes, no answers? Well, as we kind of, if it's yes, no's, think about that, right? So if it's yes, no, go back here, just have labels, right? We just have yes, no. If it's one item, do you have the disease? Yes or no? That's a nominal level variable. Now, did you get it correct? Yes, no, nominal level. But if I'm adding up lots of them, again, once I'm starting to add things, okay, now I'm in scale. I'm adding up lots of how many yeses did she get over time, okay, or across this instrument. So now we're in scale. So there's two responses to that. Individual level, we're in nominal land. As a composite score or an average score or a sum score, we're in scale land. Okay. All righty. So let's just go to qualitative methods now. And for those doing qualitative methods, a quick question for you. Are you using a general classical approach? Are you using Gruber and Lincoln approach? Are you using, you're welcome. You're using Gruber and Lincoln? Are you using phenomenological? Are you using grounded theory? Are you using I'm blocking on the last one, Melissa. What is the
I have to look it up too.
okay. So I'm curious what approach you're using. Okay. And I probably have it. Hang on a second here. Or we let's get the last one here. Are using Brown and Clark. So I'm curious if you would put into the chat for those doing qual, what methodological approach are you using? Phenomenology, grounded theory, and if grounded theory, Glaser, Strauss, and then or even Sarah Tracy, the Big Tent approach. So I'd be very curious. And the phenomenological, are you using kind of Moustakis? Are you using a grounded theory or just phenomenology? Um, um, thanks, Maria, for that. Other people that are doing that, Lincoln and Guba. Okay. All right, good. Anybody else? Anybody using Sarah Tracy's Big Tent or Brian and Clark? If you do, just throw it in there. Be curious. Going once, going twice. All right. We got a little hash mark for each of those phenomenology and Lincoln and Guba. Okay. That's just, I appreciate that. That's more for our edification of when we help with discussion chapters, what lens should we be looking at this through? And I think probably, maybe Maria or Inger, you can tell me where I'm missing it in the qualitative methods, but I'll give you what I have, and then if you want to add to it, I'd be delighted to hear. So qualitative methods, also cookbook, your neighbor, your spouse is going to be able to do the study. You have semi-structured, you have research questions, and often those research questions lead to your semi-structured interview questions. Contrary to the quant, where I want reliable, valid instruments, here it's much more nuanced and much more, I'll say, subjective in nature, okay, in terms of developing those questions. If you have other people that have asked those questions before, awesome. Also, I think the chat GPTs of the world are great at helping you develop a set of questions around topics or research questions, and then having you really kind of edit from there. Your participants should have some experience in that. If you're curious about parents' perceptions of a school, those should be parents that have school-age kids, okay, or college-age kids, all right? So they should have experience in that area. The instruments and procedure is typically the semi-structured interview, or could be observations. And I'm really I'm not talking about ethnographies, I guess, per se, but most other kind of, I'll say, traditional qualitative methods. The data plans, how will how are you going to be excerpting? How are you going to be coding? And how are you going to be thematizing? So you can do this by hand, but I mean, LLMs definitely have a hand up on these things. For example, let me see if I can get there. I mean, for example, the intellectus qualitative tool, okay, is actually going in. This is not a great example, but the tool is going in and literally excerpting, okay, important passages like that, developing code names and code descriptions, and developing theme names and theme descriptions. So, uh, I had this conversation this morning. The tools out there, be it this one or others, can go out and excerpt and create these things very quickly. It would take 50 hours or 100 hours to go through, you know, 12 or 15 interviews. The tools can do it in 2 minutes. Okay. So, but then it's really your job to see, it's going to identify those excerpts and put them together in a code. But you have to, as the uh, well, as the trained researcher, okay, make sense out of that. Do these excerpts really go together, and do they really um, help in some sensible way to um, have that code name and description in there? So you have to be the final arbiter, okay, the evaluator. I think these LLMs are generators, and you're now evaluators. And I think as time goes on, I think that's going to be more of what's happening here. You can, of course, do it by hand as well, but it's nice to have um, some AI kind of identify spots in an MRI or excerpts and passages and be able to scan that information incredibly quickly, and then have you figure out whether or not that's great or not. And you should talk about how that's done. I was going to show one thing. Hopefully this is what I typically put out there. Two windows open here. So typically we have something like this. And Melissa, maybe we can put this in the chat or out with folks too. How to cite in the methodology, what software you're using. Um, you know, how do you explain an AI? Okay, tool could be us or in vivo or whatever. Okay, what is it doing? Okay, what's the quality? How's it developing themes and so forth? So there should be some conversation about that. Okay, about what you're using for sure. If there's any rule of thumb, I mean, two rules of thumb. AI, you have to vet everything, but also you need to be completely transparent about it. You should say what you're using. It shouldn't be a secret. All right, you should tell people, faculty, you tell your faculty what you're using. All right. Okay, so that should be in that data plan. The sample size determination is different here. I mean, the typical rule of thumb is saturation, which is just a fancy way of saying, hey, no new themes or information is going to be coming out. If I went from 15 interviews to 35 interviews, I'm not adding that much more, okay? So that's what we should be shooting for. The ethical considerations when people are telling their stories. I mean, this is true with quant as well, but we should talk about consent. We should talk about confidentiality, anonymity, how you're storing the data, and so forth. That carries over quant and qual. Okay.
Then we have a hand raise if you want to.
All right, and well, I'm going to just finish one more quick thing here.
Okay.
So thanks, and then I want to give some nuances about what I just talked about, which is let me see here. No, I wanted to go here. The well, evidently I didn't have. So under the sample size, I guess I want to say that there's just like with um, large effects requiring, excuse me, with small effects requiring large samples, that it's not practical. I think that there's practical things in determining sample size here too. It's not really fair to have a student do 25 interviews that are an hour long. So, keep them confined, you know, or narrow. Okay. Um, okay. And then, all right, I'll take that question. Sure. Okay. Okay, great. Maria.
Hi, how are you, Jim?
Hey, good.
I have a quick question. So, if you're using this intellectus qualitative program to do the data analysis, or at least to come up with like a coding themes and so on, when you are referencing this program, is it considered an AI program? I just mean for like transparency. Obviously, you can tell your committee members that you're using this, but once you're writing the dissertation, are you including it as an AI tool?
It is, well, it's a tool that uses AI. So what do I mean by that? I don't mean to be, so you can be adding codes. I can be manually, okay. I can manually um create, excerpt, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I can manually create codes. Okay. I can manually add themes. So you could use it without the AI whatsoever and help you organize it and put your interviews in and help you excerpt code and so forth.
Got it.
So, okay. And it also has an AI component to it. So, and I will, well, Melissa, do you want to weigh in on that question?
Yeah, I'm gonna post up. We have an explanation of how you would explain it, and then you're gonna have to tweak it depending on how you used it. So I'll put it in the chat so you can copy and paste.
I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure that, if I've coded most of my things, I guess by hand, just because of the concern of, these things getting flagged when you submit this type of
Right.
scholarly things. And so I just want to make sure that if I utilize this, it's in the appropriate manner. So I appreciate it.
So when in doubt, cite it, one thing. But the other piece is this isn't like it's I mean, for here, when it's creating, let's just call it this theme name, okay? There's a theme name, theme description. It might well flag that description, but I mean, I would have said anyway that you have to edit that name and that description. So the excerpts are the excerpts from there. Okay, there's no um writing going on there. There's identifying, okay, but there's no writing. And then I would have said that everyone should be looking to edit those theme names and descriptions or code names and descriptions. So whether it's flagged or not, I think it's separate about being transparent about the use of things, and then also editing things, anything AI, and then also vetting even the excerpts that are being identified. So transparent and edit. Those are the kind of the two mantras I would say here. Um, Transparent in your use of things, and then editing and vetting things as the evaluator of what that AI has done. I would also be very interested, Maria, that because we want those use cases that someone has done it by hand and it's taken you X amount of hours, okay? Um, and I would even be willing to Melissa, even to work with Maria and have the AI do it to see what the overlap of themes are.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's obviously been a tremendous amount of work to kind of go through all the interviews and code as in a very subjective manner because obviously it's through my lens. But I definitely wanted to kind of try out something that was like what you're referring to with this program to see what would be
Right.
the difference. So yeah, absolutely.
How long did it take you to how many interviews and how long did it take you?
10 interviews, and I would say about 3 to 4 hours per interview.
So 30 to 40 hours. Okay, that sounds about right. Um, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind, see if we can get Maria on the calendar,
Yep, I'll reach out
whatever, today,
after the
tomorrow,
webinar.
next week, or whatever. And
Sure.
just to see, because when we do these things, most people are using just this, and then they may complement it with a few other things. But you're a great use case to help validate, oh, okay, hey, the AI is picking up to what extent is there overlap here? A, to what extent are you finding things that the AI is not? And to what extent is AI finding things that you're not? So I mentioned in those three camps, okay, of themes. So anyway, that will be a fun half hour, Maria. All right.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. All right. And I think what Maria's doing is not while I think intellectus qualitative is great in lots of ways, and from the feedback we've received, it's not the only way. I mean, you can go down that process and do a Maria process of spend that 40 hours or whatever it is, do the work, and then have kind of the AI kind of validate what you have, or maybe look for nuances that you haven't identified. So I think or complement what you have. Oh gosh, here's some other rich excerpts that is supporting that theme. By the way, you could not only use the AI for inductive, where it's excerpting and naming those common excerpts, but also deductive. So if you already have a priori themes, okay, you can upload those themes and then find excerpts that support those. Or, hey, I don't have excerpts that support those. So you could do it via inductive or deductive, okay, modes of doing that. So I look forward to playing around with that. Okay, let me carry on here. How are we doing in time? Okay. Um, just a quick thing about uploading data to any AI kinds of things. You don't necessarily, if Maria's got 10 interviews, you don't necessarily have to upload 10 separate interviews. Maybe it's by the first part of the interview is dealing with intrinsic motivation, and the second part is dealing with extrinsic motivation. You can curate that data in different ways. Okay. Another use case would be, hey, gosh, I'm interested in different perceptions about schooling. Okay. And I want them from teachers and administrators and parents. You don't have to upload all of those together. Okay. You can have a separate file, different project around teachers and a different project around admins and different projects around parents. So just to know that, don't lock yourself in a box that you're creating. You can do these things in lots of ways. Just some quick thoughts. Quality matters more than quantity. Okay. Um, People ask me all the time how many themes are reasonable. To me, I don't think having 50 themes is reasonable. Somehow, when people read something, they should be able to hold it in their brains, or have a good way of structuring that. So just have it be manageable. Okay, and then I think other questions that we might have here, if any. Okay. All right. We will not be here. Well, we won't be here for next Thursday. So I'm going to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year if we don't see you. And if there's some contact information, you can get on my calendar for a free 15 minutes using that QR code. Samantha, who's on the line, can help with any student questions, support. Faculty can speak with Ashley about free trials, demonstrations, courseware, and so forth. Melissa about any other questions in general. our phone number, and brand new website that's collectively capturing all of our tools together. Can be found at intellectus360.com. So I think with that, I'll say have a happy holidays, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you all next time. And we'll get this recording to you and other upcoming things. Last thing, please do share with others. Not everybody knows that these things are happening. People don't know that the tools are available or there's support available. So if you have colleagues, faculties, or other peers and students, please pass this along, and we look forward to seeing everybody next time. All righty. Bye for now.